So this is the setup that I decided to go with. I got my 30 amp charge controller here, and I got my 1500 watt pure sine inverter. And over here, I've got my plug that goes underneath my trailer and strings all the way to the back compartment that the converter resides in. So here's the extension cord. It goes back in through a hole that was already there. It goes up in underneath the bench of my kitchen unit. That's where my converter is. So we'll pop this up and have a look how that all works. This is my 100 watt Noma panel. I got it from Canadian Tire. It was about 180 bucks on sale. I came with a little charge controller. I replaced that. But the nice thing it has is it has a stand so that you can angle it up and turn it around in whatever direction the sun is. So I set my solar panel facing the sun. I've got my cord here. What I installed is a little output. I can just plug that guy in. And my solar panel is connected up to my charge controller. So right now it's saying it's charging at 2.7 amps. Guess there's a little overcast up there. So I got a battery box with two 6-volt golf cart batteries, and I had to install a kill switch that stops the 12 volt from drawing to the trailer on this. I'll explain that one in a little bit. Okay, so I'm inside my trailer right now, and right now it's running only on 12 volt power. So I've got this plug here that normally, if it's hooked up to shore power, would power this device, but because it's only running on 12 volt right now, it won't run. So the things that I do have that run off of my 12 volt, I got my lights, and down here I installed some USB ports so we can charge devices and things like that. And then the fan for the furnace will run off of it. And I can have the fridge run off of it, but it's a terrible waste of battery power, so I don't do that. So one of the things I looked for when I was buying the inverter was one that had a remote control switch. I wanted to have something I could turn it on from inside of my trailer, since it's sitting in the cargo storage up at the front of the trailer. So this particular one, I paid a little extra for it because I wanted to have that switch so I could control that internally. So over here is the compartment underneath my kitchenette, I guess, and this is where my converter sits, and this is also where my shore power runs in and out of. This is also where that extension cord that I ran through the bottom of the trailer comes up through, and this is connected to the inverter at the front of the trailer. So if I take my shore power and plug it in here, now my shore power is connected to my inverter. So this is the panel for my converter, and so what the converter does is it takes your shore power and it distributes it out to all the plugs, and if shore power is detected, otherwise it just runs the 12 volt battery power to the different places like your furnace and the water pump and things like that, the lights. So this particular converter also charges the battery when it's hooked up to shore power. And so that's sort of the problem that you have when you have your inverter that is connected to your battery connected to the converter, is that the converter is then going to want to charge your battery. So you kind of got yourself in a bit of a loop. This particular one does not have a designated breaker for the charger, so I had to come up with another solution for that. And that brings us back here to this switch that I installed. So right now it's set to feed the trailer with 12 volt power, but through that same wiring is where it accepts the charging. So for me, I don't want it to charge or run off at 12 volt because I have it hooked up, the converter hooked up to my inverter, so I want everything to run through that. So I'm going to shut that power off. And we'll go inside and see what that did. Okay, so now we're back inside and I have shut the 12 volt power off, and now my lights do not work, my water pump will not work, my USB ports that I've installed down here will not work, fan won't work, nothing will work, which is the way I want it, because I want to come right here and turn my inverter on. And so now my inverter is on and everything is running through the shore power now. If I come back here, now my lights work. My USB is back working again. Because the converter, when it has shore power, also feeds all of the 12 volt powered appliances. And so then the other thing is, let's have a look here, is this cord that was dead here, or this plug that was dead, because when it's running off a 12 volt, there's no power going to it, should now have power. And there we go. So one of the things to think about that there is loss during the conversion from 12 volt to 120 volt, and so that runs about 20%. So anything that you're going to be running off of your plugs, then, you know, if something runs, uses 5 amps, is what it's actually going to be drawing from the battery is probably going to be closer to 6 amps. So you kind of have to be smart about this, because there are things like, for example, the USB ports down here. So right now, instead of the battery running directly to these USB ports, it's running through an inverter where it's now lost kind of 20% to provide the same amount of power that it would if it was running just the 12 volt. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for you to be running off of the inverter if all you're doing is just charging devices. It really makes a lot more sense that you would shut the inverter off and go flick the kill switch back on so you're running directly off at 12 volt. Now, what some people may do also is plug their laptop into the power outlet, and that way you get dinged twice. So you lose your 20% from converting from 12 volt to 120 volt, but then you lose another 20% when you're converting from 120 volt back to 12 volt to charge your laptop. So it may make a lot more sense for you to invest in a laptop plug that will go into your cigarette outlet. Anyway, just some things to think about. It's not that complicated to switch back and forth between them, but this is a nice way for you to be able to have power to all your plugs and run whatever your inverter can handle. That's going to probably be key, so you're going to have to do a little bit of math to figure out what kind of draw you need and how big of an inverter you require. I've got a 1500 watt inverter. It seems to do the trick for most things. If you want to be running coffee makers and stuff like that, it might draw a little more than it's able to provide. But anyway, if you got a decent battery bank and you have a solar panel up there that can keep this the batteries topped up, then this is a perfectly reasonable way to go about it. Just like I said, be smart about it. So I can just sit my solar panel. Oh, there was a golf ball, just about hit me in the foot.